Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I'm happy to be with you today. It seems that the internet overlords are not upset with us at the moment, and we are able to speak with you. If this is the first time you've joined us, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream. We talk to you to get your comments on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, to hear what you have to say about the issues that are affecting us all from all around the world. And we're happy to be here with you today. So, we're going to be talking about a bunch of things today. We're going to be talking about knife fights. We're going to be talking about the education of our children. We're going to be talking about what is the future of this nation and the world. We're going to be talking about, well, what you think. And by the way, not only can you reach us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, DLive, and other social media through your chats and your comments, you can also call into 607 242 1582. Let me say it again. It's 607 242 1582 to be able to give your voice on these messages. Tony, it's great to see you. I'm happy you're here with us today. So, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. Hello, Michael Bowie is with us. I'm happy to see you. DJ Jesse, hey, great to see you there too. And as I said, folks, you too can add your voice to this conversation and speak about whatever you wish. Hello, Dal. Great to see we're getting a nice crowd today. And we're actually not being slammed by the internet overlords at the moment. We'll see how long that lasts. So, one of the first things I wanted to talk about is you may have heard about the April 24th message that there was supposed to be a National Rape Day. And thank God this was a hoax. This was not real. And let me say this right off the bat. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't funny. This wasn't something that we should have even had as an idea. Rape is a horrible thing. Anyone who would sexually assault any other human being, whether it's a woman, a man, a child, it doesn't matter. You are wrong. It is evil, and we denounce that absolutely. I am happy to report that throughout the nation and across the world, this has not happened. That's the good news. We're starting with good news today. It did not happen. Now, this is according to the Sun newspaper, and it seems that there was a schoolgirl who was so concerned, she was so afraid, an 11-year-old, she took 2 knives to school because she was afraid of this TikTok hoax. And you know what? No woman should ever have to have that fear. No person should ever have that fear. And we denounce that. It was a horrible thing, and it should never have happened. To quote the article, rape and sexual assault are always serious crimes. It should also go without saying that this is that all forms of sexual violence and abuse are traumatic experiences that can and do have wide-ranging and long-lasting impacts and are never appropriate topics to joke about. We agree with that statement. We stand by it. It is not funny. It is not a joke. It is wrong and it is evil. And if you are participating in that, shame on you. You should be denounced, and this is a problem. We've heard about the hoaxes of or the reality of kids sniffing condoms and eating Tide Pods. We have a problem in our nation. Whether these are hoaxes or real, we have a problem that our kids think this is the kind of thing that they should be talking about, that this is the humor that they're looking at, that these things that damage and harm each other is the kind of thing they think is funny. I'm sorry, it's not funny. There is no joke in this. There is no humor in this. Causing anyone to be traumatized, to have to fear for their life, their safety, their wholeness, that they're going to be okay because of someone else's depraved ideas is never a good thing. And we need to denounce that. And we have to celebrate that it didn't happen, that this hoax was false. And I am happy to say that I have not heard one case where this happened. That is a good thing. There's a hope for our future when these things are denounced by everyone on social media, and it is not allowed to happen. Tony mentions that, and by the way, hello Tammy, I see you there too. Tony mentions I've been saying that for a while now. We have a people problem first and foremost on so many levels in this nation and around the world, because we've seen this in the UK as well. TikTok is international. You know, the Chinese have done a great job of making sure everyone in the world can reach TikTok. And that's where this apparently started and then went on to WhatsApp. And we needed, and we have seen, everyone has universally denounced this, as they should. And if there's a lesson to be learned for our children, is this is not right. It should be denounced. No one should ever even consider this as an idea. It's not funny and it's not right. I think everyone will agree with that. Tony mentions it's a lack of responsibility in parenting. That someone would think this is funny, quite possibly. There is a breakdown somewhere in our society that someone thought, this is a good idea. We can talk about this. This is a joke. No, it's not. It's not funny. It's not a joke. It's a problem. And we need to say, no, you can't do that. No, that's not right. And we will not allow that in our society. I think we all agree on that. I think we all can say that is absolutely the worst thing that could happen. Let me show you again on the screen. It is not a joke. It has an impact on people, and this is abhorrent. I agree with that statement. And I think we all can, no matter what. So I did want to bring that up because it's good news that it didn't happen. It's bad news that it even came up as an idea, but it's a good thing that it has been proven to be false and no one was harmed as far as I can find anywhere in news media, and I'm happy about that. That is a good thing. So with that said, let's also move on. Some people may be aware, last night at about 1 in the morning, there was a fire literally across the street from my house. And so if I seem a little tired, if I seem a little off, well, from 1 to 3 a.m., a great number of police were out and about, and they were fighting this. We have all these cops. So I just wanted to show you that because, and it goes into a couple things. And by the way, Dal, I did just see your comment. I think it's more of a cultural, social engineering time bomb to eliminate. Sorry about that. Engineering time bomb to eliminate population by promoting bad ideas to take advantage of the weak-minded and self-destructive behavior. It is quite possibly that we have a generation that see headlines. They think that popularity is more important than anything else. And that's why I think that hoax on April 24th spread. They don't know the difference between infamy and fame. They don't know the difference between negative publicity, negative ideology being viral, and just a video of cats which going viral. There is no difference, and we need to teach that difference. As for what you just saw, the fire there, no one, as far as I have checked today, no one was harmed. This was in Binghamton, New York, and strangely enough, just down the block, on that same block, just in 2019, another home burned down completely, and someone did die in that fire. But the thing I'm noticing is there are lots of arsons that are going on in this region and around the nation. Arson seems to be up in small communities and large communities. Part of that is because, well, there's a lot of people who are trying to avoid evictions, people who are trying to avoid mortgages, foreclosures. There are people who are trying to escape taxes. That is a problem that is happening. But at the same time, there is a trend here. We're seeing our society break down. Remember, we have a large number of people. Imagine this, and I showed you that for a specific reason. Imagine that we have less police, we have less fire departments, because we're defunding these groups. We're defunding law enforcement. And think about how much more dangerous that situation is. How many people could possibly be harmed? Let's assume that we go with the BLM demand to defund the police. Let's say we defund the police by 50%. As you saw in the video that I just showed you from last night at 1:30 a.m., imagine that there are 50% less police, which means it takes them longer to get to every scene, and everywhere else is that much more in danger. Imagine if there was something happening somewhere else in the city, and the police that came to the scene to help evacuate the people from that apartment building on Walnut Street. What if they showed up 3 minutes later? What if they showed up 5 minutes later? What if they showed up a half hour later? Because the fewer police there are, the longer it takes them to get from one place to the next, from one situation trying to save lives to the next situation to save lives. And there are fewer of them to save lives in total. This is a direct consequence of defunding the police. It is important to understand the consequences of the ideas and the rules and regulations that we are putting out there. There is a consequence for when we see someone say, hey, we're going to have this national, international sexual assault day. There is a consequence. It affects 11-year-olds. It affects kids in school. You know what? When we have fewer police, it affects when there are fires. When people are calling for police 911 for emergencies, there is a cost. And we have to understand that. That's why we've seen crime go up throughout the nation in large and small cities and towns. There is a problem here, and we have to think about that. Imagine you have less people to help protect you in a moment where you are in your greatest need. Is that worth it? Is that worth it to you? Let me go back to the comments here, and I see that Jesse mentions that he's afraid that it could get worse, especially without a police presence. Tony mentions that, did you see the proposed New York State Police Reform Bill? They're making it harder for a cop to detain anyone resisting arrest. I know there's a bunch of these laws, and we're going to get into that, in particular, talking about Ma'Khia Bryant. And that's why I brought this up, because I want to talk about Ma'Khia Bryant. I think most people have heard the name. In fact, we were talking about that in the video just on April 22nd, when we were talking about Ma'Khia Bryant, Hakeem Littleton, and Ricardo Munoz. Now, you may not be familiar with all those names, and if you go to the video, you'll see that. These are three cases. Actually, we also talk about Jacob Blake. We talk a little bit about Rayshard Brooks. We talk about, from the summer of 2020 to today, a bunch of these cases where there's this allegation of police abuse. Not to say that it doesn't happen. But in each of these cases, what we see is a commonality. And I want you to understand, if there are less police, these commonalities are going to result in more death. They're going to result in more people being endangered. Ma'Khia, when we're talking about Ma'Khia, and I think I have the image here, what we're talking about is this. Okay? And as you can see on your screen, a police officer arrived on the scene. Within 10 seconds, he was confronted with this moment where an assailant, someone is attacking another woman who is undefended and was not provoking. She was standing still, and this other young woman came up and attempted to stab her, as you can see clearly, with a knife, which is attempted murder. That police officer reacted by shooting. Now, we can have the conversation. Do you think he should have shot her? Do you think he should have used a taser? There are some who have said, well, he should have tried to de-escalate the situation. Let me ask you, you have literally 2 seconds to save someone. I want to show it to you again. This is a mid-swing. This is taken from a video. So this is live action. Someone is in the moment, moving their arm. And let me ask you, what de-escalation that does not involve a gun or a taser, what's the de-escalation? What would a social worker do? I'm being honest. I'm asking people this question because as a nation, it seems we need to have this conversation because we're listening to people who are saying that knife fighting is a good thing. They are saying that having knife fights is a natural part of being a teenager. And I'm going to get to the comments in 1 second. But when I say that there are people in this nation who are saying that this is a natural part of being a child growing up in America, let me be very clear. We have Breen Newsom, who has been highlighted. This is from the National Review. This is her tweet. And I'll show you the tweet. There's her tweet from April 21st. Teenagers have, let me show you this. She says, teenagers have been having fights, including fights involving knives, for eons. We do not need police to address these situations by showing up to help to the scene and using a weapon against one of the teenagers. Y'all need help. I mean that sincerely. Let me go back to this image. Let's look at this again. What is she talking about? What is she talking about? That this is a moment she wants to see that woman stab the woman in pink. That is what she has said. That is what these people are saying. Go ahead and stab the woman because you're teenagers. Are we as a nation telling our children and the kids who are watching this, the kids who are growing up, we're talking about the kids who are in elementary school, that they are watching this and they are listening to their adults, their leaders, the individuals that they look up to, like LeBron James, and they are saying, yes, it is normal for you to get into a knife fight. So when you have a disagreement, you can use a knife to attack someone, to stab someone, possibly kill that person because of an argument. And the police should not stop you. Anyone who tries to stop you, they are evil, they are wrong, because this is a natural part of your life. This is the argument that has been made to America. We have heard it from some of the top people in this nation. Let me again show you some of the people we're talking about, and then I will get to the comments. And here's another, Valerie Jarrett. These are blue checks these are recognized individuals of prominence by Twitter and the news media. And Valerie Jarrett, who formerly worked under the Obama administration. This is a prominent individual, a prominent figure in black politics, so to speak. And she's saying that a black teenage girl named Ma'Khia Bryant was killed because a police officer immediately decided to shoot her multiple times in order to break up a knife fight, demand accountability, fight for justice. She is okay with, and I want to be very clear, she is okay and she is supporting the woman in the black, who is Ma'Khia Bryant, stabbing the woman in pink because this is a natural, normal part of life. Let me come back to the comments. All right. And I want to hear from people, if you think that is a normal, natural, and I am not picking on anyone, I am not trying to abuse anyone. I honestly want to hear that argument. I hope the members of BLM, of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Plot, Citizen Action, and Democratic Socialists of America, I want to hear them explain to me and to you how this is a natural, good thing. I really do. Let me get back to the comments. Cyrex is asking, what's going on? Well, we're talking about what's happening in our nation and what we are teaching our next generation of kids. Tony says maybe in the 50s it was normal. Tony, I would say to you that even in the 1950s, while there was a higher number of knife fights, it was still not considered normal, but it did happen. And that was because there was gang violence. There was a larger number of gangs in the nation, even up until the 70s. And gang fights did involve more knives and chains and occasionally the odd gun. But then our nation got better. Gangs actually reduced for a while. And this isn't West Side Story, as Dow mentioned. This isn't West Side Story. This isn't some kind of happy, there's no happy ending when someone is stabbed, possibly to death. Cyrex mentions that it's the Wild West, y'all. Tony mentions, yeah, then they could really cry racist cop if he allowed her to stab the pink girl, then shot the big girl. Dow mentions that, so basically these people want us to use historical precedent to return to violence and conquest. Tony mentions, really, that wasn't a, quote, knife fight, because that would actually imply both people having a knife. And that's, one moment. Hello, you're on the show, but give me 1 second. I just want to finish this comment. Tony mentions that really that wasn't a knife fight because that would actually imply both people having a knife, and that's not really the case, as only one person was armed with a knife. Thank you for calling in. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I'm Michael Voss. With whom am I speaking?
It's Jesse. How are you, Mike?
Hi, Jesse. It's good to hear from you, and please go ahead. We want to hear.
Well, the whole situation with this cop being, victimized, almost victimized, or being blamed for doing his job. I mean, doing it how he was trained to do, and the fact that he literally had 3 seconds to react to that woman swinging that knife, and it was the difference between her stabbing her in the head and saving her life.
Yeah, and that's literally, and you can. I think we've all seen the video by this point. Or the full video, not the edited video that was shown by MSNBC, where they hide the time frame of what happened. It was literally, you can count down from the officer being on scene. It was a total of 10 seconds. Once the woman actually rushed up, it was about 5 seconds in total. So yeah that's accurate. Let me ask you, Jesse, is in your mind, in looking at the video and knowing what's happened, do you believe in any way, shape, or form that that could have been stopped by any other means? Is there a way to de-escalate by words or other actions?
The only way that could have been de-escalated if he showed up minutes prior to everything that transpired. In that certain situation, deadly force, I think, what should have been used, which he did use, because I mean, in that situation, I don't think a taser would have been effective enough, quickly enough. I mean, people can argue that all they want, but you're not the officer. You're not in that situation, and you have to rely on your instincts when you're protecting and serving your community. Okay, now, as this gentleman did.
Now, Jesse, you mentioned a great thing about the taser. Let me be very clear. A taser does not instantaneously stop you. You don't freeze in place. You don't stop movement. You don't suddenly fall over and you're completely disabled. That is not a reality. So someone who is in motion, you're walking forward, you're lunging, you're attempting to stab someone, does not stop instantaneously, assuming that the taser works, which they have a high fail rate. They don't always work.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of videos where tasers are being used, and the person being tased still manages to attack or move around when they're supposed to be incapacitated and not moving, and what the taser does. I think that's due to the amount of voltage that a taser has. It's not like if you picked up like a live telephone wire, you would drop down the ground in a second and not move. But I mean, you can't induce that much voltage into a human, to get that kind of effect. I mean, that person might have a heart defect. You might just kill them. Right. Breathing could stop all that stuff. I mean, tasers, they are tasers, but I mean, the amount of voltage in order to make someone drop like that, like a sack of potatoes, is way too high to be used on people.
Exactly. And that's not the purpose of a taser. Otherwise, you'd use the gun instead. So
Right.
let me ask you this. If it were you or one of your children, and they're the child in the pink, if you or anyone you know and love was that person in the pink, would you want that police officer to try and attempt to save your life? Or would you prefer to be stabbed, as suggested by Bree Newsom, as suggested by Valerie Jarrett and Kathy Griffin and many others?
Yeah, I mean, that rhetoric is completely just ridiculous to even say something of such. And I think that goes to the belief that, it's not their kids or someone that they're involved in. So what do they care if someone gets stabbed? These are just teenagers fighting. I'm like, no, it's a little more than that.
Okay.
It's attempted murder. There's a difference between fighting with someone and trying to literally kill them with a knife.
Right. There's a fist fight and then there's attempted murder.
Right.
And let me ask you this, because it's been suggested by Bree Newsom, it's been suggested by Valerie Jarrett and many, many other individuals, noted individuals of politics and celebrity, that knife fights are a natural, normal event for teenagers. How many knife fights did you go through or are you aware of when you were a teenager, if you're not a teenager right now?
Pretty much everyone I've met in my life has never been in a knife fight or witnessed one, ever.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because we've been told this is normal.
Oh, yeah. No, I heard all about that. Yeah, this is a normalcy. Yeah, everyone, this is just, it's just their way of twisting things to fit whatever narrative they're pushing, because it's not that bad. It's not that bad. The police officer was in the wrong, and he's a white supremacist, and he hates people of color, and all this other crap that, that they're just pushing all the time, and they have to stick to that. They can't just back down and say the officer did a good job.
Well, he
did his job, because that would go against everything that they're pushing.
Well, he couldn't. I don't think race applies here because both the girls are black. And
no, I know, but I'm just saying it's the whole narrative of. Oh yeah, yes, but the officer, I don't know what ethnicity the officer was, but
he's white. He is.
Yeah,
white.
of course. Well, there you go. Do you know what I mean? Like it was the officer and the person that got shot is the narrative.
Okay. There's another idea that was being promoted by MSNBC's Joy Reid, who suggested that Ma'Khia Bryant was scared, and that's why she was attempting to stab to death another woman. Do you believe, let me ask you, when you get scared, is it a natural response for you or anyone you know to go grab a knife and stab someone?
No, of course not. Being a fight or flight is usually the natural response to a stressful situation. And yeah, fighting is not coming after someone that's not attacking you. Fight, flight response is responding to an aggressive behavior towards you, not going towards someone else. That's the difference.
Okay. And again, I'm just asking other people. This is what the show is for, folks. This is what we do here. We talk to you, and almost no one in the news media will do this. Almost no one on YouTube will do this, to actually speak with you every week and say, well, what do you think? Was there anything else about this that you wanted to mention, Jesse?
Yeah, LeBron James.
Yeah, go ahead.
And other celebrities that kind of throw their BS out there, and no accountability whatsoever for their words. Other people say words are could be violent and all that. What he literally said, "You're next." Yeah. Technically, you're calling a mob out to that man. Okay. A mob. I'm not talking 10, 15, even 100 people. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people.
Now, do you believe that LeBron James, in saying you're next and targeting the police officer by picture, showing his face, do you believe that was similar to Maxine Waters saying that we have to escalate the fighting? Do you think that was insightful and perhaps, like we've heard from the statements on January 6th, a call to violence?
Absolutely. It's funny that you brought Maxine Waters up, because that was going to be my next point that I was going to make about, even though no violence took place after what she said, it didn't mean that those words didn't have a level of gravity that could turn into a huge level of violence.
Well, let me correct something there. You said, Jesse, there was violence immediately after Maxine Waters' words.
I was not aware of that. I was just waiting. I was talking about if the verdict came back or not. That's the rhetoric that I heard, or the report that I heard. So
let me clarify.
Sorry, I was misinformed.
No, that's all right. That's what the show's here for. To clarify, on that same night, approximately an hour after Maxine Waters' call for increased conflict, we saw that the National Guard in Minneapolis and police officers were shot at in a drive-by shooting. Luckily, no one died, but they were immediately attacked within an hour of her making those statements. So there was immediate response. Whether it's connected or not is a different question, but she made her statement for increased conflict, and immediately that same night, an hour later, there was a drive-by shooting attempting to kill National Guard members and police officers in Minneapolis. So
yeah, I believe anyone that makes statements, especially people that hold high office or have a lot of following. I mean, LeBron James is LeBron James. There's millions of people that believe everything he says, or not everything he says, but are fans of him, so to speak. Right. So he is very influential in that aspect. And whatever, the words that he does say, whether good or bad intentions, they hold a lot of weight.
Sadly,
it can be very influential on people.
Yeah, sadly, entertainers hold a lot of weight in our society. And I think it's troubling when politicians and entertainers, Kathy Griffin, people like Valerie Jarrett, Joy Reid, when they go and who's a member of the news, and they excuse this and say, hey, violence is okay. Go ahead and kill someone.
Violence is okay as long as it fits our narrative and whatnot. But heaven forbid it was the other way around. And I'm not trying to be a victim or place blame on things, but it's not partisan at all.
I don't think so.
Not at all. Absolutely not. I mean, for instance, Mike, I tried to share one of your videos that you posted on YouTube a couple days ago. I forget which one it was, but I did post it on my wall, and within less than an hour, it was gone. And then I did it again, it was gone. And then I did it again. I posted your video again, and I checked back 10 minutes, and it was gone.
Let me ask you, did Facebook ever tell you why they were removing the...
No flagging, no warning, no harassment, nothing. No warning whatsoever. And people don't believe you, really. I mean, I think that honestly, I've been truly flagged by the Facebook police because I'm a conservative. And I do have, and I do post stuff and articles and videos that don't fit that narrative. And every time I do, even if it's a joke, even if it's a plain, simply, look at like a Biden gaffe or something, taken down every time.
Well,
every time.
That's okay. And so there's real world examples. Have you ever heard of someone on the left or left leaning when they put up memes that say like Kathy Griffin's image holding up the decapitated
yeah, or any anti-Trump rhetoric or anything? Nope, absolutely not. And they're sitting there having a good time and laugh, and that's fine. I love it. I love poking fun at everyone. You know what I mean? That's why our country's great. You can get away with that. But the fact that conservatives are being silenced on every platform, even in your workplace, it's getting a little ridiculous. And to be honest with you, I blame the media first off, and second off, the left pushing for it. And you know what I mean? It's just there's no true news anymore. I mean, except for what you're doing. There's no.
Thank you.
No, honestly, but I mean, it's either you're against us or you're with us or you're against us, and that's not news.
Well, that's
not responsible reporting. These people should be suing for yellow journalism and everything else.
I think that's coming down the line, and we'll see that coming along. Let me ask you.
I hope so.
I do want to open up the line because other people, you may want to call in to 607-242-1582, just as Jesse has done. It's open for everyone, including members of the left. Was there anything else you wanted to mention before I let you go?
No, I think I got a lot of what I wanted to talk about with you, and thanks for taking my call, Mike. It's a real pleasure.
Absolutely. And thank you for both watching the show and being involved. Thank you very much.
All right, take care, Mike. We'll watch the rest of your show. Thanks, bud.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Yes, folks, I'm not kidding when I say you too can call into the program. You too can voice your opinion. And yes, you have the freedom. I'm talking to everyone on the left, anyone who's a progressive, members of BLM, Plot, Antifa, Democratic Socialists of America, especially those in Ithaca, which have proven to be violent. Let me ask you, you have the right to call in. You have a choice. You can call in and say, at 607-242-1582. And you can say, Mike, I completely disagree. I think that black on black crime is not a problem. You can say that you think that black teenagers should be allowed to stab each other in front of police and adults. You have the right to say that. And you can tell me why I'm wrong in saying this isn't normal and that it should not be encouraged and that we have a problem because our children, the 8-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, they are learning and hearing, and they're paying attention to people like LeBron James and Joy Reid and Valerie Jarrett and Bree Newsom as they say, no, let the kids stab each other to death. It is normal. They are learning, and tell them, you can disagree with me and say, Mike, that's not going to happen. That won't be the natural result. And I would ask you why. Why do you think that we are teaching these kids that this is okay? Why do you think they're not going to listen to their heroes like LeBron James and say, okay, this is a normal thing to do. I should get into a knife fight the next time I have an argument with someone? Please explain that to me. And I'm being honest. Please explain that to me. If I'm misunderstanding this, please explain it to me. Please show me where the racism is when it's a black on black crime happening in front of you, and it happens to be your daughter, your sister, your mother, is your person who is about to be stabbed to death. That you want to see them die? Because that's what we are hearing from these politicians, entertainers, these individuals of prominence, influencers as they're called. And I am asking, if I am misunderstanding, if I am in any way trying to seem to be misrepresenting the facts that exist, not the emotion, I'm talking about the facts, please correct me. I ask you, this is the platform to do it, to make others, to make everyone else, Tony, Dal, Jesse, Tammy, to let everybody who's watching and will be watching this to say, okay, this is why we don't understand it. This is why we're wrong to say we should not allow knife fighting amongst our teenagers. We should not promote violence, that we should not encourage people just because of a difference in political beliefs, that they should not be encouraged to let their emotions fly and try to kill other individuals. If I'm wrong on this, please explain it to me. I beg you, I will give you all the time you need to explain this to me, how I am wrong in trying to stop violence. Whether it's black on black, black on white, white on white, I don't care. None of it should be allowed. Tell me, folks, you're watching the show. Am I wrong? Am I missing something on this? Am I misunderstanding? Should we allow white on white crime? Should we allow black on black crime, Hispanic on Hispanic, Asian on Asian? As long as you're in the same race, should you be allowed to stab someone to death? It's a serious question, because this is what's being posed by our politicians right now. This is what they are suggesting. And by the way, this is what's going to happen when we defund the police. When we defund the police and there are fewer officers to be able to show up when you or someone you love is about to be stabbed to death, you're going to not have that police officer around because they're going to get rid of them. And now you have to deal with the consequences. So this is a very important question because it's about to be your future. Unless you think I'm wrong, and I'd love to hear this. Please, I want BLM, Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Citizen Action, Indivisible New York, Democratic Socialists of America. Please come on to the show and explain to me how the future of America does not look to have more violence, more knife violence, more teen violence, more individuals killing their own and killing others, because we're going to defund the police, and we are encouraging more violent protests, which are otherwise known as riots by definition, and that we are encouraging more destruction. Because if I got it wrong, I want to hear it. I hope to be wrong. I would love to be wrong and know that the future is going to be more peaceful than it is right now. But I'm hearing people say, no, go out and commit more violence. We heard it from Maxine Waters. We're hearing it from Joy Reid. We're hearing it from Valerie Jarrett. We're hearing it from entertainers. They are encouraging more violence, whether it's at a BLM, ANTIFA riot, or whether it's with teenagers in schools and at home. And if I am wrong, tell me. The phone line is available for everyone, 607-242-1582. Jesse just called in. You can call in too. I don't censor the phone line. I don't censor the comments. You're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, D Live. You can type in anything you want. I mean, folks, just tell me. Am I missing something here? I know Jesse mentions that violence is violence, and I agree. Tony mentions that he thinks I'm correct. Mike Bowie mentions sports ratings across the board are tanking. NBA, MLB, NFL. And I think it's because we're seeing politics is now part of our entertainment. You look at the movies. Pick your movie in the last 5 years. It's all about politics. It's not the story. And I'm not saying there haven't been movies with politics in them. There are plenty of those. But they were movies, and politics was a subtlety. It was a subtext. It was maybe something they were alluding to. I mean, think of the comic books. The X-Men, which were created in the 1960s and gained popularity in the 1970s and 80s, they are an allegory for the racial divide in America during the time of the Civil Rights Movement. And that's why they were created, to show that being different doesn't mean bad. And now we've gone from that message to the message today that white people are evil, that they are intrinsically bad because of the color of skin they were born with, and that violence is okay, especially if it's black on black, and officers in witnessing these crimes, that they are by duty bound by law, that if they witness a crime of someone is about to be murdered in front of them or attempted to be, they are by law and by oath required to protect. And we're throwing that all away. We're throwing that all away. And I have to ask, do you agree? Is that the message we want? Because it's, you know what, you may not see all the changes today, but you're going to see them in the next 10 years when that 8-year-old that is watching this right now, who is listening to everyone say it's okay, when they grow up to be an 18, 19, 20-year-old, and they've been taught violence is okay because you feel like it, because your feelings are more important than the truth, that's the generation you're going to have. That's what you have to live with. That's the violence of America that's coming. That's the problem, and it's on its way because we are teaching them now, and they're going to grow up and remember. Tony mentions that violence has no race. He doesn't think that violence has a racial boundary. Recent leftist riots proved that to him. And Michael Coletti's with us. Hey, Michael, I'm glad to see you're there. I don't see you on my system, but it's good to know you're here. And Jesse mentions equality is no longer on the table. It's not about equality. We have heard from BLM directly speaking to the public, and they have said since this, matter of fact, it was in Binghamton, New York, as a matter of fact, this was from yesterday. This is from Roderick Struggles, who is also known as Roderick Douglas, and is alleged to be Messiah Andrews, a leader of the political progressive leaders of tomorrow, a quasi-political group similar to Antifa. And this is this is a protest he helped engineer yesterday, demanding that the fight is not over. George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, was convicted on all charges, whether he should or should not, which is a question. He was convicted on all of that. And right now they're out on the street saying, no, we're not done. We have to continue to protest. The protest will not end. They wanted to get Biden in and promised us when Orange Man Bad is gone, the protest will end. They're continuing to protest. We know as a fact that right now in Seattle, Portland, across this nation, riots are still happening. We know for a fact that there is a autonomous zone in Minneapolis right now. It's been there for 11 months. It is not going away. This is the reality. In fact, here goes. This is a video from KARE News Channel 11 in Minneapolis. And this is what they were talking about.
To do.
Those holding the square say nothing is ending until their list of 24 demands is met.
There seems to be the pressure on us instead of the city.
Marsha Howard, an activist.
Can you imagine that? She's upset. Marsha Howard, as you just saw, is upset because there is pressure on, there it is. She's upset because the protesters, theoretically protesters, they are actually criminals. They have broken the law. An autonomous zone is a treasonous zone. It is by definition of treason and tyranny, and by insurrection, the definitions of the words, they are criminals. They are holding American citizens hostage, destroying businesses and keeping people locked in their homes against their will, because this political organization wants to demand that they, unless they get what they want, they're going to continue to violate the laws of the United States. So much so that when a man died in the George Floyd Square, prior to the beginning of the Derek Chauvin trial, they would not allow police to try and save the life of that individual. This is a fact. They allowed someone to die rather than allow police to try and save someone's life. They are criminals that have aided and abetted the murder of a human being. And that is regardless of whether that person was black, white, Asian, Hispanic. It doesn't matter. That is a fact. This is a criminal operation. This is an insurrection that is happening right now, as I have just shown you from the news media. So, credible source. And they're upset because people are saying, stop. You won. You got what you wanted. Let us live our lives. Let the hostages go free. I would tell you that this is a terrorist situation. We have terrorists who are making a list of demands, and they are using force against the will of other Americans and violating every law in America. And yet, we're told those are the good guys, and that they're being persecuted. How dare you tell them to stop holding other Americans hostage from destroying other American businesses? How dare you say that you shouldn't follow that not following the laws of the locality, the state, and the federal government? How dare you say that that's a crime? And kids are watching this happen. And this is not the only autonomous zone in America at this moment. And the kids are watching. Again, the Ma'Khia Bryant, they're watching that. Oh, it's okay to stab someone. It's okay that when I feel like I don't like the laws, I can go and hold other human beings hostage against their will for 11 months without any repercussion by the law as I break every law in this nation. Can you imagine that, folks? Imagine if someone else said that to you. Imagine if it's you. I want you to imagine that this is you. And I want you to imagine very clearly and very carefully that you are home and this mob just came to your house and they just told you you can't get outside your house because they're taking over your neighborhood. And if you don't agree with them, you are evil and they will harm you. And you're not going to be released until whatever they want happens. Let me ask you, do you think that's a crime? Just maybe? Just maybe that's a crime. Let me go back to some of the comments. Jesse mentions there's no coverage. There's no national coverage of what I just showed you from KARE News Channel 11 because they don't want to say that there is an autonomous zone that still exists, has existed for 11 months, and that there are American citizens who are being held hostage because that doesn't match the message of, well, white people are evil. Even though there are black people and white people in the autonomous zone holding other Americans hostage. Jesse said that he had gotten booted. Well, yeah, because Facebook, Twitter, they don't like me talking about this. They will disconnect this, even though I am showing you news sources. I am showing you facts. These are credible sources, as firsthand as I can get them. So I'm not surprised. They don't like people having a conversation. Jesse mentions that the left hates facts. Apparently they do. Because what I have said, again, the phone number is here, 607-242-1582. I ask BLM, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Democratic Socialists of America, Citizen Action, Indivisible New York, and the other indivisible organizations across the nation. Please, if you think I am wrong, if you think I have not represented your position correctly, please call in. Tell me how this is not crimes, that these are not crimes and they are not advocating more crimes. Please tell me how. Let the world hear what you have to say. We have an international audience on this program. Let's hear this, because what's happening here in the United States is affecting the Great Britain. It is affecting Canada. It is affecting Germany and France. France so much so that they are actively rejecting any and all forms of the gender identity politics. They have excluded that from their government because they see it as poisonous to their nation. That is a fact. Tony mentions, why haven't the feds cracked down on the real insurrectionists? Because they're all black and they're in a black neighborhood. Because they are Antifa, because they are Black Lives Matters. And obviously, if the government were to stop an autonomous zone, a treasonous spot, an insurrection in America by legal definition, then they would be considered evil and racist. And there is such a fear in America of being called a racist that it allows you to do anything, including allows you to murder another person like Ma'Khia Bryant tried to do. Tony mentions definitely acting like domestic terrorists. The definition is use of force or violence to force change not warranted or desired. And I agree, that's what's happening. Kristen has joined us. Hey, Christina, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And this is dangerous. By the way, these people are looking to do this because, and there's a point to this, Citizen Action, BLM, plot, they gathered together. They're using all of their tricks to take over your children. And I'm not saying that lightly. I want to be very clear because we have a video here, which is available on Facebook, and you will see links to everything I'm showing you So you can review it on your own after the show. And this will take 1 minute and 46 seconds. Please watch and read everything on here for yourself.
That we don't have to live under their rules, up to whatever their fantasy professionalism. We gotta do all that respectability bullshit. We have 3 open seats, which means that we have an opportunity to run 3 community-backed candidates. And I am very, very, very pleased to say that we have one here with us today. No, y'all supposed to just believe me. Remember, I taught you guys for a very long time, like, listen to black women, like, what do we say goals? Right? Right? So if I say community back, just be, oh yes, yeah. Whatever she said, that goes. So, CISO, our very own Support Black Business 607, co-stamped, co-signed, community-backed, owner of Not Screaming. And if you live in the city of Binghamton, I really gotta get this right. If you live in the city of Binghamton, you need to find her at some point. If you are registered to vote, just go ahead and sign. If you are not registered to vote, there are a bunch of people around that you can also register to vote and then sign her petition. Y'all got that? So, how many of y'all live in the city of Binghamton? Just raise your hands. Okay, so basically, she should have all her signatures tonight. That's what I'm saying. Okay, very good. So, if everybody does their job, listen to black women, she should have all of her signatures tonight, right?
So I want to be very clear, and I want you to see this. And so I want you to understand, exactly what we're dealing with here. They're coming for your schools. They're coming for the kids in the schools. They want to take over your school board. And they're willing to use people to do it. That event I just showed you, which occurred on April 20th, that was advertised by Black leaders of, BLM. Black Lives Matter. It was advertised by Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, the same people who held a march just yesterday, making demands that they have to be elected, that we have to do what they say or else, because they will burn it down, burn your homes down, burn our governments down. They will cause violence. This is what they say on a national level, that they want our school children. They held an event because pot smoking and marijuana smoking in New York State is now legal. So they organized an event to allow people to come and waited an hour and a half as people got high in front of the Binghamton Police Department, and then whipped out a form and said, sign this so that we can take over the school board when people were mentally impaired. That's right. It's a psychoactive drug. They didn't say that when people were sober when the event started. They waited an hour and a half after people had gotten high. After that speaker you just saw, that black woman, was already mentioning live that she was getting a contact high. I covered the entire thing for an hour and a half. It was a live stream video. Their purpose was to take over the school system. They are going after your children, and they want to teach your children a very important lesson. They want to teach your children that it is perfectly okay to be able to stab another person, that it's okay to have knife fighting, because they have said that over and over again. They have said, no, it's okay. Knife fighting is fine. It's a normal thing. They want to teach that to your kids. They want to teach your kids that it's absolutely okay to judge someone by the color of their skin, and that if they have the wrong color of skin, that they are intrinsically evil and that they should have things taken away from them. Not because of the person's quality of life, not because of what they've lived or what they are doing, but by the mere color of their skin, which, by the way, is the definition of racism. Yes, and yes, Tony, as you mentioned, don't think for yourself. Do what you were told. You have been trained. As you heard her say, this is not edited. There is a live hour and a half video on Facebook, on YouTube right now, showing the entire event. I didn't edit anything. I did add in a comment, but I did not edit her words. She said this: "You have been taught, you have been trained. Do what I say. Don't think, don't question, do what I say." And they want to give that message to your children in schools, along with it's okay to have a knife fight and no one will stop you, because if they do, they are a racist. Can you imagine this? That they're going to use these tricks and tactics. I'm going to get you inebriated. I'm going to get you mentally impaired. And I'm going to use you in that state of mind where you can't think correctly. And I'm going to use your signature as a valid voter. By the way, I spoke to the New York Board of Education, New York Board of Elections. I've spoken to the school board. And there is a story coming up on this very soon. It is a fact that if someone were to take advantage of you, to get you drunk, to get you mentally impaired by smoking marijuana or using other drugs, and then gets you to sign a document, a signature, a petition for an election, or to fill out a voting ballot, it is legal and it is accepted. That at this moment, no one has challenged this. So far, no one has ever challenged and said, wait a minute, that person is legally mentally impaired. That person cannot make a decision because they are under the influence of drugs. And the answer is, and BLM and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow and Citizen Action are very aware that it is perfectly legal to get you drunk, to get you high, and when you can't think, to then get your signature so that they can get more power. That is a fact. I have spoken to the Board of Elections. I have spoken to the school board. I have asked this question of legal scholars, and the answer is, at this moment in New York State, it is legal. Tell me this isn't about power. Tell me this isn't about people who are abusing the system to get their way. They will march down the streets to take advantage of this because they will threaten you through the use of force. And when they can't do that, they will use elections against you, and they will tell you that it is perfectly okay to commit violence as long as it's in their advantage, because you know what? You were told what to do, and you're not to think for yourself. Do what they say, give them power. Your children be damned, your schools be damned, your rights be damned. They want it, and if they want it, you have to give it to them or else. And if I am misunderstanding this in some way, the phone line is open, 607-242-1582. 1582, and you can type in on Facebook, on Twitter, on DLive, on all the social media, and tell me how I got it wrong. Jesse mentions gun laws within states that have legal marijuana make it harder for you to get a gun. That is true. Dal mentions, wow, that sounds like the very definition of Shanghai. Shanghai. Though lucky for the signers, they won't wake up on a frigate in the South China Sea. Jesse mentions it's tyranny of the people. I think it is. And I challenge the members of BLM, the members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, the members of Citizen Action, the members of Democratic Socialists of America to come into the program and explain to me how I am wrong. Please explain to me why the only way you seem to be able to get candidates onto the ballot for elections is by manipulating people, by lying to people, by using the people. By using people is the only way that you can get your agenda moved forward, by threats of force and violence. Please explain to me how I'm wrong, because we have lots of examples of it And I can show you them over and over and over again. You know, there was a great article in the New York Post. Now, this is opinion piece. I want you to be clear on that. This is an opinion. Why don't we let kids knife fight like the good old days? By Charles C.W. Koch on the 23rd. And there's a part in here, I just want to read it out to you. He says, disappointingly, my colleague, columnist Phil Klein, has felt compelled to join the critics of the knife fighting. Phil asked in a sarcastic tone whether the police should, quote, somehow treat teenage knife bites as they would harmless roughhousing and simply ignore it, end quote. My answer to this is yes, that's exactly what they should do. Yes, even if they are explicitly called to the scene. I don't know where Phil grew up, but where I spent my childhood, Fridays were idyllic. We'd play some football, try a little Super Mario Brothers, then have a quick knife fight, and then fire up some frozen pizza before bed. And now law enforcement is getting involved? This is political correctness gone mad. Obviously, an opinion made in jest. Because it's very clear that there is a problem here. Do you know? And this is from, and you can look this up yourself, it is the Crime in the United States report from the FBI. 2019 is the most recent full year of the report that exists at this moment. 2020 has not come out yet. And you know what I can show you? These are knives or cutting instruments in every single state reported by the FBI in 2019. This is rifles. I'm bringing this up because we heard from Joe Biden. We've heard from Kamala Harris. We've heard from Beto O'Rourke, the fake Hispanic, the Irishman, who is a fake Hispanic. We have been told that we have to get rid of AR-15s because your life depends on it, because this is a danger to you. But you know what I notice? In every one of these states, there is not a single state where the number of people who have died due to rifles is higher than or even equal to the number of people who have died from knives. And we are encouraging this number, the number of people who died from knives, to increase. We are telling our kids we want more of this. In California, 252 people were killed with knives versus 26 people who were killed, 34 people who were killed by rifles. And that's not AR-15s. That's every type of rifle. Your hunting rifles, hunting accidents, you name it. It's every type of rifle, not just AR-15s. How about we look at Colorado, a state that has so many problems? 32 people were stabbed or cut by knives to death. 5 people by rifles. Let's look at another state. How about our fun state, New York State? Okay? And here we go, New York State. 119 people in 2019 were killed by knife attacks. 3 were by rifles. 3. And they're telling us we should let this happen more. In Ohio, which is where Ma'Khia Bryant decided that she wanted to stab someone to death. 26 people were killed by knives, 13 by rifles. One of the closest numbers in the nation. How about we go to, I don't know, how about Washington, D.C.? Here we go. 18 people stabbed or cut by knives, 0 killed by rifles. But you're being told that the thing that's going to save your life is we need a red flag law. We need to ban all rifles. And by the way, don't think about knives. Don't think about the problem with knives. Don't think about knife fighting amongst teenagers. That's not important. That's not a problem. In fact, if you try to stop that, you are a racist. My God, people. The numbers are right there in front of us. There's a bigger problem with knives, especially with teenagers. There's a bigger problem with knives than anyone with an AR-15. And if you think that I am wrong, that I misunderstand this, ask some of our viewers from the United Kingdom, from Great Britain. Ask them about knife fighting. Ask anyone who watches this program or anyone who comes from London about knife fighting. In January of 2020, there were more people killed by knives in London than there were people who got shot and killed in New York City. That is a fact. And if we're paying attention to states, guess what they didn't mention? How many people died this weekend? Forget any other weekend. Just this weekend in Chicago. How about Detroit? How about Baltimore? How about New Orleans? I'm not even saying combine all of them, any one of those states. You want to tell me you're trying to protect black lives? Okay, fantastic. Why aren't you telling me why we aren't doing something about the black on black crime, which is the core? What is the core thing that happened? We have over 6,000 people every year die from black on black crime. And we're worried about the less than a dozen people who die from police officers in a year. Black people who die from police officers in a year. In the middle of commission of a crime. I'm sorry, we have the wrong heroes. We have the wrong heroes, folks. We really do. If you're telling me your heroes are LeBron James, who is inciting violence, you're telling me that your heroes are Maxine Waters, who is inciting violence. If you're telling me that your heroes are people like Roderick Struggless, fake name, we do know who it is, but fake name on Facebook, who is inciting violence and saying threatening violence. And by the way, teaching children. These are kids. They are teaching the children that the way that you affect this nation is through violence. This is what they're teaching. Let me ask you, what do you think the future looks like? You think I'm wrong? You think I'm misunderstanding? And if you do, please call into the show. If you think that we need members of BLM who are advocates of violence, who are advocates of having knife fights, allowing our kids to try and kill each other with knives, if you think that's a good thing, if you think these are the best people possible, if you think listening to these people tell us how it is absolutely normal for our children to do this and that we should allow these kids to do this without interruption unless you're a racist, only a racist would stop two black kids from stabbing each other to death or one of them stabbing someone to death. If you think I am wrong, please call in 607-242-1582. And I can't wait till there is a 7-hour difference between here and over in Great Britain. And I would love to hear from our UK viewers like Agent Black and a few others to comment on the knife murders by knives in the UK, where there are no guns, and yet they have almost the same kind of numbers of murder by knives as we do as by guns. I don't know, folks. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm misunderstanding this. If this doesn't make sense. I'm giving you the information. Tell me if you think I misunderstand. And by the way, when I say that George Floyd Square, that there's an autonomous zone, I just want you to understand, I'm not making any of this up. Here it goes. This is Daily News, April 22nd. There are special orders for white people. Tell me that's not racist. You know, remember Rosa Parks? There are special signs for people of certain colors telling them that they can or cannot do something. That is racist. We all agree. That was racist. To have water fountains that said white only. To have seating that was white only. There are rules for people who are white to enter the autonomous zone in George Floyd Square, and they're supposed to be the heroes. Those are the heroes that these guys are marching for. Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow is marching to have more of this kind of racism. This is what they want to teach your children, and this is why they want to get onto the school boards to teach your kids at 8 years of age that racism is good. And if you thought, well, Mike, you got it wrong, there is no autonomous zone. After landmark policing trial, a debate over reopening George Floyd Square, if you didn't think that KARE News, Channel 11, which I showed you previously, if you didn't think they were being clear, well, here it comes from Reuters being presented on Yahoo News on April 23rd, Friday. The evidence is there. It is surrounding us, and it is accurate. It is true. It is real. It is a problem. And our nation is going to suffer from it. But if you disagree, especially if you disagree, call in 607-242-1582. I know members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow watch this program because they're looking for opportunities to try to discredit me, to try and embarrass me if they think that they can do so. I know that they have conversations about this program and trying to discredit and to denounce and to hide and attack this program for pointing out these facts to you. We know that there are groups and politicians who watch this program, some of them on the left, some of them on the right, that disagree with this program. And they look to try and target people to say, oh, this is wrong. You know what? Mike doesn't know what he's talking about. And maybe you think that too. Maybe you think I've missed a source, that I haven't presented enough facts. Perhaps you think that facts don't matter. Maybe you're like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who believes that feelings are more important than the truth. You know, those quirky things like facts and numbers and reality. Perhaps you are like the Binghamton University or SUNY Broome College, where you think that math is racist. Oh, yes, they do think that. Oh, yes, you will see that at SUNY Broome and at Binghamton University, they are going to introduce racial politics in the math classes, not just for kids who are 8 years old, not just for kids in high school, for kids in college, to make sure you understand that if you don't toe the line, you are a racist. If you are born with a certain skin color, you are a racist, which is driving America right back to the 1950s, in exact reverse of the 1950s on who's in charge and who is not. But the one thing that's going to be consistent, Democrats are in charge of that. Jesse mentions that plot can't discredit you. You know what? No, they can't. I'm providing you facts. I am showing you my sources. If anyone thinks that, you don't have to be on the left. Anyone thinks that I am misunderstanding, that I have not presented the truth, that I have not given all the facts in this or enough facts to make clear the point. If you think that there is some critical information that I somehow have not heard about, or I do not know about, or I am not presenting, please call in, type in, let me know where I am wrong. I give you the opportunity. That's what this program's about. That's why you see all these comments. That's why you've heard people call in. Michael says, technically, black on black crime isn't racism, therefore it doesn't fit the narrative and won't be reported. Jesse says, I hate to say this, but it's almost like a case of black supremacy instead of racial equality. It is black supremacy. In fact, if you ask members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, also known as PLOT, they are black supremacists. They do believe in racial inequity. They want power. This is all about power. This isn't about race. This isn't about Ma'Khia Bryant. It's not about Ricardo Munoz. It's not about Hakeem Littleton. It's not about George Floyd. They don't care about these people. If they cared about it, we wouldn't be in this situation now. This is about power. It's about as you saw in the video, and you can see in the full extended live stream that we provided, you heard them say it themselves. This is about doing what you are told. It's not about freedom. It's not about thinking for yourself. It's doing what they say, doing what you are told. You have been programmed. You have been trained. Do what we say. Give us power. Don't think. And according to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when she spoke to 60 Minutes, it's about feelings. And as long as the leaders feel like they're doing something that is right to them, the truth doesn't matter. How many times have you heard the saying, well, that's your truth? I've heard someone say that to me recently. And let me correct that right off the bat. There is no your truth. There is the truth. There is one truth. There is truth. And then there's opinion. And if someone ever tells you, if you show them, like I am, if I tell you that knives are deadlier than rifles in the United States, and that there are more people dying in the United States because of knives versus rifles, and they want to tell you, well, you're wrong because rifles are, they're assault weapons and they're going to kill everyone. Here are the facts. I am showing it to you. And if they say that is your truth, these are numbers from the government. There is no truth, my truth or your truth about it. That's the fact. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Socialists of America, especially in the Ithaca chapter, members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, especially in Binghamton and Southern Tier, New York, members of BLM, they don't want you to think. They have told you, and we have recorded it live. They have said, you're not supposed to think. You're supposed to do what they say. This is about power. And they are training your children in schools at 8 years old, at 5 years old, to do what they say, to give them power and to never let it go. And they're going to add 4 more justices to the Supreme Court to make sure you can't overturn the way that they are going to take power. And they are trying to add Washington, D.C., which was created and designed specifically to not be a state because of the political power and abuse it will create, that they are trying to make it a state so that they will control the Senate, so that you will never be able to stop them from controlling your life because you don't know anything. They don't believe you are smart enough to live your life, and they are telling you point blank, do what we say or else. And if they think I am wrong, if anyone thinks that I am misrepresenting this, please text in. Please call in 607-242-1582 from anywhere in the world. People who watch this show from Peru, from Germany, from, I know we have members who are watching it from the UK, Scotland, from Canada, Mexico. There's about 100 countries around the world that watch this program at some point. If I am misunderstanding or misrepresenting it, please let me know. Let me go back to some of the comments. And I see that Jesse mentioned it's not about what it started out as, and that was equality between races, and that is what we all want. I believe we should all have equality of opportunity, not of outcome. Yes, Jordan Peterson said it. He phrased it wonderfully, and it is a fact. I don't want equity. I don't want what's yours. I want all of us to have the opportunity to succeed or fail based on what we do individually, our abilities. And no one should stop that. No one. I don't care what color of skin you are. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what sex you are. I don't care what your sexual preference is. I don't care what you do behind closed doors with consenting adults. That's not my business. And I don't care. But when we try and do things in life, We should have the same equal opportunity, and no one should get in the way of that. Not that we should lower the standards and pick on one group of people because of their color of their skin or because of their genetics, and that they should be punished for birth versus someone else. That's not right. Tony mentions it's all building blocks, steps to raise, to overthrow from within. And I believe that. And you may see that in the next 20 years. Actually, even less. Tony mentions assault weapon definition is a weapon used in the action of an assault. Well, by that definition, if we're looking at assault as something that is used to attack a person, and which is how New York State defines it, which is how New Jersey defines it, it's basically how every state and the federal government look at it. Everything that you could possibly have is an assault weapon. A hammer is a weapon that can be used to assault somebody. A nail, a steak knife, as we saw with Ma'Khia Bryant. These are all assault weapons, weapons used to assault. If we're looking at it from the military definition, that is in a fully automatic weapon. And by the way, there are 131,000 people in the United States as of January who are authorized and have machine guns. There are 765,000 machine guns in America at this time. 15,000 machine guns are owned in the state of New York, 40,000 in the state of New Jersey at this moment. And nobody uses them, and they're not a problem. So it's not the guns. It's not assault weapons. Because assault weapons exist. They are owned in large numbers, and nobody is being killed by them. So let's debunk that one right off the bat. And by the way, if you're wondering where I get those numbers from, the ATF. I've covered that in a previous episode program. It's from the ATF in 2021. Mavis. Hello, Mavis. Good to see you. Black children matter. I do think black children matter. I think all children matter, which is why I don't want them indoctrinated. I don't want them programmed. I don't want them trained to think of violence like we're seeing is being done by groups like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow. I don't want to see them being encouraged to have knife fights like we're hearing from Valerie Jarrett or from Bree Newsom or by Joy Reid. I think it's the worst thing we could possibly teach these kids. And I think our friends over in England and Great Britain know for a fact that it is a horrible idea, which is why you never hear them talk about knives in other countries, why they don't even tell you that knives are at least 4 times more deadly than rifles, and that means at least 8 times more deadly than AR-15s in the United States. And I want to protect children by not encouraging them to have more knife fights, by not telling them it's okay to have an autonomous zone, to ignore the law, to go out and based on your feelings to harm other individuals. I think that's wrong. Jesse mentions it's about power, not what is right, which I agree with. Mavis mentions, but only after they've been killed. Oh, I see it. Mavis, you're saying black children matter, but only after they've been killed. Only when they get killed on camera and someone happens to be white that did it. Then it matters. Because we can think about it, what happened to Ma'Khia. What happened to Ma'Khia was in Cleveland, Ohio. No, excuse me, in Columbus. And a week earlier, it was in Cincinnati, Ohio, there was a 13-year-old girl who stabbed another 13-year-old girl to death. This is a fact. 13-year-old in Cincinnati, as I recall, stabbed a 13-year-old girl to death. They both happened to be black. No one talked about it. No one cared. Where was BLM saying we have to stop these teenagers stabbing each other to death at 13 years of age? They didn't mention it. They don't care because it doesn't advance their power over you. That's why you didn't hear about it. And if BLM, if Plot thinks I'm wrong, please come on to the show and explain to me, show me the numbers of where BLM, Plot, Antifa, the Citizen Action, Democrats, Socialists of America, please show me the numbers of how you are preventing black on black crime in any neighborhood in America. Please, show me it. Show me the evidence. You got over $1 billion. Patrice Colores is buying 4 homes at a time, all in white neighborhoods, getting out of the ghetto. Snoop Dogg moved out of the ghetto. LeBron James moved out of the ghetto. Everyone's escaping, leaving all the poor black people on their own. Please show me how you're helping to stop black on black crime. Jesse mentions it's unconstitutional. We're talking about a lot of unconstitutional things, and yet it's being allowed. Tony mentions a weapon definition is an object used to cause injury or death, either offensive or defensive. That would be the exact definition of an assault weapon, something used to assault. Thank you, Tony. And he said, it's not a firearms problem, it's a people problem. You said it at the beginning of the show, and Tony, I agree with you. It is a people problem, and that's why I'm talking about people. And I'm talking about what people are doing and what people are trying to do to our children and how they are justifying it and demanding that you must be evil, you must be a racist if you disagree with the facts. If you think about this for more than 5 seconds and go, and what is the next step? Because we've heard from BLM and ANTIFA and the rest of them, and they've said very clearly, violence works. That's why we got Derek Chauvin guilty. That's why we're getting power. So we're going to keep doing it. And if you thought that Joe Biden, if you thought that Kamala Harris, when they promised you that all of this with all the violence we saw in 2020 is going to be gone because they're in charge instead of Orange Man Bad, you have no idea what you're talking about because it is absolutely a lie. They lied to you. And we see it happening now. And I can point you to several cities over and over again that are currently in flames. Jesse mentions it's justified the right actions by a trained police officer. You know what? He did the right thing. I'm talking about, in this case, with Ma'Khia Bryant, the officer did the right thing. He saved a life. And thank God for it. He's a hero. He's not a victim. He's not some evil perpetrator because he was born white. He's not some kind of oppressor. He saved a black woman's life. Sadly, that meant he had to take a black woman's life because that black woman, Ma'Khia Bryant, was in the middle of an act of evil. She was trying to kill someone. If we're going to be honest. That's what she was doing. Don't justify it. Don't say, well, it's okay because she was scared. She wasn't scared. She was attacking. You know, people are not race. You make a good point there, Jesse. And by the way, folks, just because I'm mentioning Jesse, I'm mentioning Tony, you too can comment. I cannot emphasize that enough. This is about free speech. And for some reason, this week, the internet overlords are allowing this signal to go out without interruption, which they almost never do. Because I think they're very confident that this subject, that they're going to win. Because they own it. You go to MSNBC, you get to hear Joy Reid. She owns this. You get to hear, you go to NBC, CBS, ABC. You go to 90%, 80% of the news media, and it is controlled by the left and the far left in particular. And they are actively trying to tell you how this is okay. And don't think, just give them power. Just do what you're told. They're not afraid of me speaking because they don't think you're paying attention. I think you are. And not everyone is commenting, and you don't have to. But I think a lot of people are. And I know people are paying attention. And I want to hear your voices. Again, this is one of the few news media programs. Yes, we're political commentary. And that means we are part of the news, small as we are. And we hopefully, if you found this to be interesting, if you're enjoying this, please do like, do share. Most of all, subscribe. Help us fight the shadow banning, the throttling that happens on a regular basis. Please subscribe so that more people can be involved and to add their voices to tell. And I've never asked you, and you keep hearing me say, if you disagree, speak up, because this is America and I believe in the First Amendment, and we should all have a right to say, I don't agree. Maybe you missed something. But I find it phenomenally interesting that when we listen to people and we hear people like, when we listen to people like Bree Newsom, when we listen to people like Valerie Jarrett, when we listen to people like Joy Reid, that they want to silence every single other voice that is out there. You can't speak to them. You can't tell them they're wrong. You don't get to speak. That's a problem. Tony says he's not ready to call in yet. I'm not forcing anyone, Tony. But it is always welcome. It is always an open door. We've had people like, there was Just Larry, who sometimes watches the program. Sometimes he comments. It took him a year. And by the way, Just Larry does not agree with me on BLM. He does not agree with me on several issues. And Just Larry called into the program, a month ago, for the first time. And we had a great conversation. We didn't necessarily agree, but he got to talk and say what he thought. I want people to understand. Yes, I have a passionate, strong point of view. I am giving you evidence, and I am backing up that evidence with thought about what happens next, the future. And by the way, no one should elect any politician. I don't care what they are. The right, libertarian, conservative, the Democrat, far left, I don't care. No one should be elected if they can't answer the question, and then what happens? We want to pass this law, and then what happens? When they pass the red flag laws, which is being pushed by currently by Joe Biden and individuals like Sheila Jackson. One second. Oh, we have another call into the program. And this is Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. And who's this speaking?
Hey, Mike, it's Jason. How's it going?
Hey, Jason. It's great to have you on the program. It's been a little while.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually the first week in like a month that hasn't completely lagged out. So, be able to kind of follow the program and then maybe, chime in on a few opinions on some of the stuff. And for the most part, I mean, I think a lot of this, opinion is very similar to what yours is on a lot of these incidents. I mean, we just start with the girls and the stabbing there and what options were given. I mean, when I think there's just some things, one question I always had to ask, and I start wondering, is just that how far can they go before people are like, this is ridiculous. I mean, police need some sort of, they've got to do something. I mean, they've got to have something to protect themselves and others. And, the Monday morning quarterback, you think, well, a lot of cases you'd be like, well, they got a little point here. Maybe they could have done a little here. But in this case, where the girl's literally in mid-swing, you're just looking at it going, yeah, how was he supposed to, disarm that person? Or was he supposed to wait till the girl was stabbed 1, 2, 3, 4 times before he actually fired the gun? I mean, it's really incredible. And, I think that one of the ironies that I saw was with, that was the tweet there with O.J. Simpson. When O.J. Simpson comes out and defends the officer shooting somebody who's stabbing somebody, now we know that our culture has gone to a point where that's insanity.
It is insanity on so many levels. Let me ask you. First of all, let me ask, Jason, you didn't grow up in a big city, but a smaller city, as I recall. Let me ask you, Were there a bunch of knife fights in your school when you were a kid?
No, there's not a bunch of knife fights in the school. And let me address the knife fighting story. I think one of the things too, though, is just that it's focused on skin color. They say that, well, when a police officer sees, black individuals with knives, you're not supposed to take action because that is normal for people with, black or, dark colored skin to do. And so white cops are supposed to basically stand back and let them, do that. And I just can't get over how racist it is, and it's been reported that way by a number of different news media, and I'm like, really? I mean, is that the way you're actually telling them to do it? I'm like,
so you caught it. You caught it, and I was waiting for someone to catch this. It is it is wonderful, and I want people to think about this for a second. They are saying it is inherently normal for black kids to knife fight. They're being very specific about the groups they're talking about. How is that not racist to say, well, black people knife fight all the time? That's what they are saying. That's the implication of what is being said, that black people are just violent. Isn't that one of the stereotypes we have been fighting against since, I don't know, forever? Isn't that a sign of racism? Absolutely.
It's the rhetoric that actually the KKK and every white supremacist actually says about black individuals. I mean, they're always. I mean, the KKK and the white supremacists compare, black Americans to indigenous, individuals in Africa that fight with bows and arrows and knives and and that's the sort of thing they're throwing. That's what our media is actually saying about people who are black in this country. I'm just like, it's nuts.
The term in the 70s was spear chucker.
Yeah, this is
the modern day version of it. Ma'Khia Bryant is that modern day version, and it's being celebrated. How is this not at its beginning and in between? How is this not racist? So let me ask, as you mentioned, so there was or wasn't knife fights when you were a kid? Was it normal?
No, I mean, I never heard of knife fights being a normal thing or something that was socially acceptable in any way. Okay.
I just want to make sure because I keep asking people this, and I have never heard anyone. I'm from the Bronx. It wasn't normal or accepted there. I've talked to people in LA, friends I have who grew up in LA. They've never heard it being accepted. I can go through most major cities, except for maybe Chicago, and it's pretty much not a normal thing. So I don't know where they're getting this from, that this is absolutely normal in big or small towns. I don't get it.
And that's a good question. I mean, does Chicago, believe that that's normal? Is that something that's allowed to, is that sort of behavior allowed in Chicago? And then if it is, it would explain the mass, deaths over there, because that's the way that they actually see people. They judge them by the color of their skin. They find that behavior is something that should be acceptable in communities that are primarily, occupied by black individuals, and they take that offset. And so if they are, being that racist, then racism itself is what is causing Chicago to be in the state that it is, and who's to blame? Well, it's Democrats, because they're the ones who basically politically have the power.
Well, I can tell you that in 2019, according to the FBI, out of 771 murders in Illinois, which includes Chicago, there were 70 people who were killed by knives and 7 people who were killed by rifles. So knife fighting seems to be pretty prevalent in Illinois. So maybe they think this is normal there. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that, and then the question now is just that, so we're going to take, something that is what we're going to call it culturally acceptable in Illinois, to have knife fights, and we want to spread that to the rest of the country and normalize that, and not only normalize it, but they want to specifically normalize it, among individuals who happen to be black, because that's what they're focused on, and it's just like, I mean, what are they going to say if you don't, knife fight, then you ain't black or something? I mean, is that Biden's next slogan? It's just like, here, have a knife, Well, not a gun. Yeah, here, take a knife, not a gun.
Let me ask you a question, Jason.
Yeah.
If you have children, would you want your children raised to think that, one, they should not think, they should only do what they're told, as we've heard BLM say to the public, as they are trying to get people onto the school board, that you don't have a choice, just do what we tell you. Do you think that it's good for your children to be told that it's okay to knife fight in schools? Do you think it's okay for your kids to be told by teachers that they should apologize for being born whatever color of skin they are?
Well, no to all those, but let me elaborate on a couple of those things. The situation there where you were videoing, I think it was the group there with Plot, and then they had their little stand or whatever they're saying, and when the one woman there stood up and basically says, just do what I say, and I think she mentioned the fact too, not only is she a woman, but she's a black woman, and you should always listen to them.
Yes. That is exactly what she said in the video. Yeah.
And how is that? I mean, that's a new social acceptance. So you're going to take it. So, what are they trying to do? So if it was it's obviously completely opposite of what basically they're trying to, fight against. But what are they doing? They're becoming as racist as possible, to fight image of racism on the opposite spectrum, because the opposite spectrum of what they see is basically a white man, and it's a white man basically telling them what to do and always making them do what they should do, which honestly kind of is ironic considering Biden pretty much did that in the election, but it's a little beyond them. But the thing is that you had a woman there, basically saying the same thing, not judge her, by the content of her character or of her ability, but just simply the fact that she's a woman and she's black. You got to listen to her. And only a woman and a black woman is going to be able to, tell you who to run for the school board, because she's going to be able to select the person who would be best for your children and your community, which is just and totally based upon the color of her skin, not the fact that she actually has any sort of understanding on education. And if she does, we don't know, because she basically would never tell us anything but talking points.
Well, the only criteria that was ever mentioned about her qualities are, she's black and a woman, so you need to, and she's been approved by BLM and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT. What question, Jesse? And let me ask you, do you believe that it's a good thing that people should be mentally impaired, that someone should get you drunk or get you high before they get you to sign a petition? Is that a fair thing? Is that a good way? Do you think that's good? Because I know you're a member of communities similar to mine. Would you think that's a great way? Would you think that's the best way to elect somebody?
Well, the thing is that the question is that, now that, the question is that when aren't they high? That's the question I got.
Well, I can't speak to that.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, they're recruiting individuals, to support them who may be actually high, probably, I don't know, like 25 to maybe 50% of the time. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. But, from a legal standpoint, you can't take a, deposition, from somebody if they are actually intoxicated, because you just can't do that legally. So
actually, you can.
Huh? You
can. You can get a signature from someone who's legally intoxicated, who is mentally impaired by drugs. Yes, you can. According to the Board of Education, Board of Elections, and the Binghamton School Board, which I have spoken to both just on this week, Thursday and Friday. Yes, you can.
Well, no, you can do that for that. But what I'm saying is, you can do that for that, but you can't actually do it if you are, you actually can, but the thing is it'll be thrown out because the person will, as soon as you say that they were intoxicated. No, the school board, that's a different thing.
That's again, I asked them specifically, would it be thrown out? The answer is no one's ever asked that question before. No one has any idea. So theoretically,
but then again,
at this moment,
how will you prove it?
I have video. You saw the video.
Well, you got to do field sobriety test on them to actually see whether it completely,
That same black woman in the video is in the video, the full video, stating that she is so high from contact from the smoke and people who are getting high at that event that she is sober. She is a sober person and she has gotten a contact high. It's been an hour and a half in that video, and that's within the full video. She admits that that area was so filled with now considered legally substances that individuals were getting contact highs just being there. So, yes, I can make the argument that they are mentally impaired.
Wow, yeah, that actually is good considering she actually was admitting it on camera. You don't usually get that. So, yeah, in that case, I guess you have a case there.
It'd be interesting to see if someone were to challenge it, challenge those signatures. It'll be interesting to see because it'll be, as far as we can tell, it's the first time anyone's ever made that argument.
But the other thing, though, is that we got to look at, though, is then one of the things that I see, and it's just the slow, trickle and pull in of a lot of these progressives. I mean, right now, what do we got? We got two radical, progressives on our, city council right now, and you could slowly see it's going to a point where, it's going even more. And the worry for me at some point is when tides are completely, turned, and then these policies are just implemented. Because I think it will be a point, especially with our police and law enforcement, and actually even the teachers, because who's going to want to really honestly be in a school district where you have these individuals coming out with these false racist allegations against the staff. And it will, and nobody will be there to stand against it at some point, so it's just like, it's just a couple elections away where, the entire city just goes down the hill, because once you destroy the police department and then the school district, then what else do you got, No,
I understand. It's incredible. And I think it's incredibly dangerous. And no one in the news media, by the way, the reason why I'm the only one reporting this, why I'm the only one who's highlighting this and being able to put out video on this, they didn't say that until after every other member of the press left. Every other member of the press was there for about 30 minutes at the event. I was there for an hour and a half. After the last member of the press left, then they revealed that they were using this event and the intoxication of the individuals at the event to be able to promote a political agenda.
Yeah.
Kind of tells you something.
Yeah. It's difficult.
And again, this is all on video. So it's not me making that up. It's not my supposition. There is a live stream of this that people have seen and can see for themselves, and it will be in the links. So it's not me guessing. I'm not assuming this is a fact. By the way, in our conversation right now, we can see we're getting suppressed at this moment by, I'm not sure if it's YouTube, Facebook, I think it's Facebook, but it may be some of the other sources are suddenly now throttling this show, and there is a delay that is occurring because they are not liking our conversation.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, maybe they feel our rhetoric apparently is inflammatory and shouldn't be allowed to stream freely.
I don't know. And I ask everyone who's watching the show, you all can call in. I've opened it up. I've been asking people to call in who don't agree with me. And yet it seems the powers that be, the internet overlords, now don't like what's being said. So now they're trying to suppress it. And that means they're trying to suppress you folks. They're trying to suppress your voice. Please subscribe. Please share this.
It's sad. I mean, this probably was one of the best streamed shows in honestly a month. Up to this point, I suppose.
I hope you mean because it wasn't being suppressed. Not that. I hope the quality's been consistent.
Yeah, the streaming capability.
Okay. Well, that's fair. We always try and make it better. Let me ask, was there anything else on, any subject that you wanted to share
Well, we had the verdict of the trial last week, and
Yes.
that kind of was that. But um, I observed a couple things with it, which was interesting. And one of the things, my thoughts was, well, besides for a lot of coercion, I think of the jury, as far as basically being able to really truly make a decision without actually having all the outside pressure between the Maxine Waters and also the president himself pretty much already saying what the verdict would be. And obviously with the thoughts of riots in there, but even the judge himself pretty much just came out and said too, with the jury sitting there saying that if
This is going to be challenged.
Huh? Yeah, if this is going to be challenged. Yeah, and so it really what it did, it gave the jury a way out, to think with a conscience, say, well, we'll just convict them on everything, and then it'll just go further, and then they can get off of it, So it was like the judge himself almost like basically said, this is going to go on. You guys don't have to worry about convicting him because this is going to get appealed, and it will be kicked down the road, and maybe there'll be less less media concentrating at the time, but at least we're avoiding riots and chaos during this period of time. And that's kind of what the gist I got from the judge when he said that.
And that's absolutely untrue, because there have been and are riots and protests that are going on, have been going on, and we've been promised by these groups, as I have shown you on this program, that are saying they're not stopping. The riots are continuing. They are not going to stop. And they are bringing their kids along, teaching them that violent protests and protests in general, and I'm not questioning protests. Everyone in America has that right, but they are teaching children that violence and threats and doing what you're told is the answer. So if the reasoning by the judge, as you mentioned, or any of the jurors who have mentioned, some of the alternate juror has already come out and said that they were afraid of violence occurring. You know what? It's not stopping. It's not stopping.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. We don't know. I just thought that, there was a lot, and that's what, who knows? I mean, we'll see what the future brings with this, because this is not over. Because the thing is that we'll go to trial and we'll be actually reliving this whole thing, again. And that's going to happen. I mean, I just, that's really what, my thoughts were. I mean, as far as conviction themselves, it's like, I don't know what to think.
Manslaughter seemed to be appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about, reasonable. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you've wrestled or you've been physical with somebody and actually dealt with somebody in that sort of nature, and you look the size off between the two individuals, I mean, you're just, I mean, George Floyd wasn't a small man, and the problem is that he was massively intoxicated and, died from, the overdose. I mean, the fentanyl combination, and then too, they actually found out that, apparently in the past he swallowed pills, and apparently appeared to be he did the same thing, because they found some pills in the back of the patrol vehicle, like after the fact, which was really sad. But it's one of those things though, is that a normal man, that wasn't on drugs would have had no problem, in that circumstance. And even so though, it's a very scary situation too, with.
Well, ultimately the problem is, and from my point of view is, folks, you're listening, you can tell me if you think I'm wrong. He resisted arrest. None of this happens if he doesn't resist arrest. Ultimately, and I can go back to so many cases about this. Jacob Blake would not be paralyzed today. He resisted arrest. We can look at Rashard Brooks. He would be alive today. The Wendy's would still not be burned down. A 6-year-old child would not have been killed by BLM members in Atlanta if he did not resist arrest. We can go through case after case after case, individuals and the consequences of this, where if they did not resist arrest, they would be alive. Dante Wright would be alive today if he did not resist arrest. The problem is, and besides the fact, it really wouldn't be a problem if they weren't criminals in the first place, which is the root problem is they decided crime was the right answer. So there's your first problem. You think crime is the answer. But going beyond that, once you have decided I'm going to be a criminal and I'm going to, and I may get arrested, the next answer is not, and let me resist arrest, which escalates the situation. And in some cases, which is not the norm, people die. And it's not the norm because there are 900,000 police in the United States. Actually, that number has dropped because they're all quitting. But there were 900,000 police officers in the United States having about 1 million interactions a day with American citizens. And black people aren't dying at a rate of 1 million a day. It's not a reality. We're not dying at a rate of 10,000 a day or even 100 a day. We're talking about 20 in a year. So let's be honest. In each of those cases, we see over and over again, the answer is you're resisting arrest, and that escalates the situation. And when it escalates, you're more likely to die than if you just get arrested because you're a criminal. Or am I misunderstanding that? You can tell me.
No,
more.
you're 100%. You're 100% right on that. And the thing is that I think the bigger consequence that we're going to see, though, and we might actually start to be seeing this a little bit, is that the overall ability to recruit, police officers, not only just police officers, but actually really competent, officers, is going to be far more difficult to do in the future. Because just nobody in their right mind is going to want to do a job, especially if you can get another opportunity. And one of the things I've noticed too, especially even with our local police department here in Bennington, is the fact that there has now been put an emphasis on to actually recruit more black individuals or females as well too. And one of the things that that is just realized is the fact that every single industry out there now has put in further quotas and demands for college-educated black men. And the simple fact is that there's just not a lot of them. And the thing is that it's a situation now that is put on cities and different areas to actually come up with alternative ways to incentivize individuals to come on the job because. Like I said, it's like if you have a college education and you have the capability of becoming a Bennington police officer, for a black man, there's far more other occupations and jobs to do with that college degree than become a cop. And quite frankly, in this climate, why would you want to?
Actually, they're being told by BLM, by Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, at least in the southern tier of New York, they're being told and have been told for the last 5 years. Don't you dare become a police officer. They are actively restricting black people from joining the police force in the southern tier. And then they turn around and say, well, there aren't as many black or people of color in the police force, even though they are actively going to the community and saying, don't you dare do it. So it's not a chicken before the egg. They're doing this on purpose. But
yeah,
let me say, I do want to open it up just in case someone else wants to call in. We've been on for a little while. And I, of course, always appreciate it. We've talked about a lot of things. Was there anything else that you wanted to hit on before I let you go?
No. I'll wait for your line.
No, and I thank you. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of things. So I do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes, it has. All right. Jason, thank you. You're always welcome on this program.
Oh, have a good one. Bye.
Too. All right, folks. So just like Jason, just like you heard earlier with Jesse, you too are able to call into the program at 607-242-1582. I want to hear your voice. This program is about free speech. It is about your thoughts, what you think. And you can tell me I'm wrong on any subject. You can say that I've missed something. You can bring up a subject that I have not covered today that you think is very important for our nation. And I do believe there are other issues that, while we've been focusing on this, what's going on with China? What's going on with Russia? As we see, Russia had been building up 81,000 troops on the border of the Ukraine and scolded the United States, told the United States, turn your warships around, get out of here. You don't get to be involved. And we did. Joe Biden did that. Vladimir Putin told him, get those warships away. And he turned them around. That is a fact. How is that going to affect our future? When China who has already scolded us publicly and said that America has no power and cannot decide or help to guide China in having better improvements, to call them out on the genocide that is happening in China because of the communists who run China at this moment. Let me ask you, do you think what Joe Biden coming out and saying that the Ma'Khia Bryant shooting, justified shooting, saving the life of a black woman, do you think that made China more likely to listen to America or less likely? Because Joe Biden is saying there's institutional racism because a black woman's life was saved. Let's think about that for a moment. A black woman's life was saved, and Joe Biden said that's racist. Do you think China is going to be more likely to continue to have its genocide or less likely? Do you think the 47 members of the Hong Kong, the City Council of Hong Kong that were arrested by the Chinese government, the communists of China, for daring to ask for the freedom to have a conversation like you and I are having right now, plus minus the internet overlords' interference, do you think that that's going to make China, that Joe Biden saying there's institutional racism in America, do you think he's going to be more likely or less likely to influence them? By the way, Hot Chicks, I see you're here. Good to see you with us as well. Do you think for our friends watching the program over in Great Britain, do you think that Kemi Badenoch, your MP, is going to have more problems or less problems because Joe Biden keeps saying that America is institutionally racist and points to all of these criminals who are resisting arrest and as a result are getting shot for committing crimes? Do you think that's going to help the UK or is it going to help divide the UK? I really want to hear the answer to that. And by the way, folks, you can call in from anywhere around the world. 607-242-1582 across the United States and anywhere else. And you can leave your comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, DLive. Let me hear what you have to say. Is America becoming stronger or are we becoming weaker? Are we having more of an effect, a positive effect on the communist Chinese, the Soviets, and Vladimir Putin with his socialist ideas? Are they becoming weaker or are they getting bolder because they see America is weak? Michael Coletti's here, and he says, I can't imagine what other leaders around the world think of Biden's new policies. I can tell you what I can guess. Biden has been very brash. He's been celebratory, saying, I know all these world leaders because he's been in government for 47 years, that he's been the vice president for 8 years. And he's had these conversations. He's told us he knows Vladimir Putin because he's met Vladimir Putin. He knows Xi Jinping, I believe is his name, who runs the communist China. He knows him. And these people who know Joe Biden have decided that, hey, I'm going to put 81,000 troops on the border of the Ukraine because I know Joe Biden and he didn't care. When Joe Biden said that Vladimir Putin was a killer, a murderer, Vladimir Putin said, yeah, say that to my face on international TV, and Joe Biden backed down. Do you think he knew Joe Biden would back down because he's known him for 8 years? Do you think the communist China would have the genocide? It's ongoing right now. Do you think that they did that because they know Joe Biden for 8 years and they're not worried? Because when they see him falling up the stairs, when they hear him not answering questions that have already been given to him and he gets them wrong anyway, when they see that he is trying to target all of the things that aren't going to make you safe. He wants to get rid of AR-15s and knives are 4 to 8 times more deadly in each and every state, then do you think they're saying to themselves, gee, yeah, that's a guy I'm worried about. That's an America that I don't want to mess with. Or are they saying he's a lightweight? He has no power, no control, and we don't care what he thinks because he's just a tool. Which one do you think is more likely? And you can tell me I'm wrong. You can tell me, Mike, you just don't understand. Joe Biden is the greatest thing that ever happened to America. Please explain that to me. Maybe you think, oh, Joe Biden's bringing peace. Please show me how. Maybe you say, Joe Biden is protecting us. Please explain to me how. Which one of his policies has improved America? Because I can go through a whole list of how they are not. Please show me how making a national red flag law will not be abused. Please show me how it's going to absolutely separate families, mothers and fathers from their children. And I can show you how it's going to happen. And I have shown you how it will happen. And every lawyer and every politician I have presented this to has confirmed it will happen if it is not already happening and everyone thinks it is. Yeah, it's like the summer of love. You're right, hot chicks. It's just like the summer of love. Which, remember, that was 2020, when 36 people were killed by BLM plot and Antifa. 36 people were killed, including a 6-year-old child. A mother of a 3-year-old child in Indianapolis was killed because she dared to say, all lives matter. That's how much love we see from the left. That's how much love we see from the progressives. And I make a difference. Democrats aren't progressives. There aren't a whole lot of Democrats left. There's a lot of progressives that are taking power. And they are trying to train your children to be racist, to judge people by the color of their skin, and to use violence to get what they want. That's what they're teaching them. And that's what we see in the Southern tier. As I covered recently at a school board meeting, where the left was telling us, absolutely, no, you have to teach kids to hate the police. You have to teach kids to judge people by the color of the skin, to see them as different, and that certain people are privileged, and they need to apologize for that. That's what BLM is selling. And sadly, there's a lot of people who are buying it. And Tony mentions that Biden is losing his mind. Literally, he's a Democrat Trojan horse for something worse yet to come. And I agree. And I think in 10 years, you will see the very worst of this. Rebecca says, the question is, will Biden start World War III first or a civil war? And if that's a question to me, I would say it is more likely that we will see a civil war and then World War III. We will see fighting city to city, block by block, not state by state. And you would see that fighting happen. And as we destroy our infrastructure, as we destroy our cities and our capability to defend our nation, the fear would be that at that point, you would see all the other countries that want to destroy America, that want to own America. They want our resources. They want our people. They want everything we have. They will then come in after that when we're not able to defend ourselves. That's the fear I have. And that is, I think, realistic. Mike mentions that he's been asking many of the same things that I've been speaking about today on this show to people on the left who I also speak to. And none of them give examples. And you know what? I've not heard that either. And again, in this program, I know that members of elected officials are watching this program. I know that members of the left are watching this program. They tell me privately after this program, separate of the program, in person sometimes, they tell me about what they that they saw what I had to say, that they think I'm wrong, that they disagree with the conclusions I'm making, that they don't like the sources. And I say, okay, what are your sources? They don't have any. They tell me that I'm wrong. I ask them, well, what conclusion did I get wrong? They tell me how they feel about it. And I say, well, show me your facts. They don't have any. Because they've been told, they've been taught. You do what you said. You do what you've been told, not what you think. You're not supposed to think. You're supposed to just do what you're told. BLM told us that. Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, told us that on April 20th. They made it clear. They just didn't want the rest of the major media to see it. I did. That's why they had six people that were trying to isolate me, track me, follow me, intimidate me. They tried their best because they didn't want you to hear that this was about getting people on a school board, about indoctrinating your children. They didn't want you to know that they were using every trick in the book to do so. They didn't want that out. I showed it. It's up to you to do whatever you want about it, but now the proof is out there. Tony mentions that Facebook is being selective of viewer comments on the feed. Yeah, I know. Facebook and the internet overlords are very restrictive on this program. They don't like, I'll see 12 people are watching this, 24 people are watching this program. When we're done, I'll see that actually on YouTube, there'll be like 50 people who've watched it. I can see a couple hundred people on the various different outlets that are actually watching this, hundreds of people sometimes. They don't want you to know. They want you to feel like you are alone, that you are the only one speaking. I can tell you for a fact that is not true. They just want you to feel like you're alone, that they don't want you to know. Because the more that they can silence you, the more they can get away with. That's my belief. Now, I would love to hear from someone on the left tell me how I'm wrong. And Michael mentions, imagine what happens. We've already seen what's happened in 4 months of Joe Biden. Imagine 3.5 years of him. I tell you and I promise you, there will not be 3.5 years. There will not be 4 years of a Joe Biden presidency. I am beyond absolutely sure that he will be gone at the latest within 2 years. He will do 2 years and that's it. And then you'll see Kamala Harris take over because Kamala Harris will be she'll have the idea of getting 10 years. So that's why he's going to stay around for about 2 years and then they're going to get rid of him. Mark my words on that. Tina mentions Plot and BLM are nothing more than violent, hateful groups. And all evidence I have seen is true. They have used tactics of intimidation. They tried to embarrass. They've tried to isolate. They tried to hide. They deny the public the opportunity to hear what they have to say. They will not speak publicly. And when they do speak publicly, it's usually on the national level, telling us that they will use violence to destroy our nation. Those are hateful groups. They promote racism. These are hateful groups, in my opinion, and I have yet to see a reason why not to hold that opinion. Hot Chicks mentions it's laser focused, that I'm being laser focused. Well, I hope so. And Mike says he agrees with me about Biden only making it through 2 years, and then Kamala taking over. By the way, she's already done it. She is in every high-level meeting that Joe Biden is in. She's there too. She's the one who's behind the scenes handling and deciding what gets presented to Joe Biden. It should scare you. And let me make I want to make this point. I got this. I was watching the Lotus Eaters on YouTube. It's a podcast from Benjamin, I forget his last name. Starts with a C. Benjamin Carlson, who's also known as Sargon of Akkad. And he has a mostly libertarian program, and he's talking about the different things. And in the United States, See, the best way to understand what's going on in the United States sometimes is to look overseas. And Benjamin Carlson, the Lotus Eaters program, they're looking at U.S. politics and they're commenting on it. And he had a very interesting thing to notice. Remember when it was last week when Joe Biden said that there is a crisis at the southern border, that the 172,000 illegal migrants that have come, with at least 1 million expected to follow them, with God knows how many tens of thousands of children, unaccompanied children, absolute child abuse that's happening because of his policies. He says this was a crisis. On the same day, and this is pointed out to me by the Brits, and it's absolutely true, on the same day, the White House came out and said, Joe Biden is wrong. Joe Biden doesn't represent the policy of the White House. There is no crisis at the border. There is a challenge at the border. Now, the big thing, forget the semantics of the words that are being used. Let's think about this. Joe Biden was corrected by the White House on the policy of Joe Biden. Who is running our government? Have you ever heard the White House correct the policy position of a president ever before? Have you ever heard the White House say that someone in the presidency doesn't know the policy of that president? Have you ever heard that said before? And no one in the US media spoke about that, which includes myself, because most people missed that and didn't think about it for a second and say, hang on, who's running the White House? If Biden doesn't know the policy of Joe Biden and the White House is correcting him on the policy of the presidency, who is running the nation? Who is deciding what is our policy? And that should terrify people. Look back last Friday, look at Joe Biden talking about this. There is a crisis at our southern border, and then look at the White House press release, Jen Psaki, and in the White House saying that Joe Biden doesn't know what he's talking about, and then tell me that Joe Biden is running this nation. Don't believe me? Look it up for yourself. And the rest of the world did notice it because they have a different point of view about our government. I missed it. The rest of the American news media, if they noticed it, absolutely won't tell you that, but they let it just pass on by. Oops. That's right. It's not our policy. The guy who actually dictates the American policy, the guy who dictates the policy of, supposedly, the policy of the Democratic Party, guess what? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Let us tell you what the correct version is. How do you do that? How do you do that? It has never happened before that I can recall ever in American history where the White House is saying that the president doesn't know the president's policy. And if you think I got that wrong, look it up. Tell me where I got that wrong. Tell me how that is not what was said. Tell me how Joe Biden is on top of it when the White House is correcting him. Hey, Michael, I know the show's almost over. We've been on for about 2 hours, 23 minutes. I'm going to go about another 7 minutes, and then we're going to finish up here. Thank you for letting me know it's a great show. Dow mentions that streaming is becoming a reality on alt tech as Rumble. I'm on Rumble. I'm on BitChute, although I have some problems with BitChute. I'm not on Odyssey. I know that Tina has mentioned before that live streaming, I should try and live stream off of Rumble. It costs $100 a month to be able to do that, and I don't have $100 a month. You know, I'm just a poor man, and I do this all for free for 15 years. I don't have that money. So we're not live streaming on Rumble. Otherwise, we would, because it's not free. I know that they are testing it, but they are charging money. Sticks and Hammer, I don't know who Sticks and Hammer is, but I do know that Rumble is allowing live streams, but they're charging $100 for it. So I'm not doing that. If the show ever makes money, then maybe that'll be different, but we don't make money. We lose money every year, several $1,000s. Tony, I love your humor. What? The White House is, POTUS is the White House? Well, yeah, exactly, right? The swamp is the puppet master. And I tend to believe it. Tony, yes, we know that there is a cabal because what was it? Was it Newsweek or the New York Times or Time Magazine told us there was a cabal that guaranteed they engineered the winning for Biden. So, yeah, what's a cabal? Isn't that the swamp? Hot chicks. Mike is just a poor Irish man. Actually, in my family, there is some Irish. We do have, going back through the family tree, I know my family tree goes back to about 1619, I believe it is. Somewhere 1680 or 1619, and then we stop. We have no history beyond that. And I know that in that family tree, there is some Irish, just so you know. Kind of interesting. All right, folks, so we got 4 more minutes. And let me say again, if you found anything that we've talked about, any of the links that we've presented to you, any of the ideas that we have discussed with you, if you found it to be interesting, I'm not saying you have to agree. If you found it interesting, if you found it thought-provoking, please like and share, and most of all, subscribe. If you like the fact that you, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m., get an opportunity to voice your opinion, just like we saw that Jesse did, just like we saw Jason do when they called in, like we have seen Tony and Mike Curletti and Mike Bowie and Tina and Hot Chicks and so many people, when they have called, when they leave their messages on Facebook, on YouTube, on DLive, on Twitter, and they can comment, and anyone who comments after the show, if you believe in that expression of First Amendment rights from anywhere in the world, people like Agent Black and all the others from all the other countries, you know, if you support that, please subscribe. Join us in expanding this expression of free speech. Fight the shadow ban, the throttling that happens when we mention the wrong thing, as we've seen happen today, as we've seen happen for the last month, that they throttle us if we say just the wrong thing. Because they don't want you to have this conversation. They don't want you to think about why they are supporting, why they are defending, why they are encouraging our kids to have knife fights. That they are encouraging our kids and excusing our kids for being able to have knife fights and saying you're a racist if you want to stop that. That you are the racist if you dare say knife fighting is a bad thing for black kids or any kid. And that if you dare say that you don't want to fall into the cabal for, if you don't want to fall under the mob mentality when they're trying to take over our schools, please subscribe. And always leave your comments, because you are the reason why I do this every week at 2:30 on Sunday at Eastern Standard Time. You are the reason why I do the shows during the week, covering so many different issues, and have been doing that for 15 years. You are the reason why I get to speak at Rutgers University talking about the Second Amendment and the red flag laws, why I get to speak at Binghamton University and SUNY Broome and so many other colleges and so many other events talking about the issues that you bring up, that you have an opinion on. You are the important thing. This show is about you. Thank you for the compliment, by the way, Hot Chicks. You know, folks, I want to thank you again. I always enjoy speaking with you. I thank you for taking the time out to be with us, to share your thoughts, your comments, your ideas during the show, after the show. We look at it on all of the different platforms. We thank you for that. We love you, and we want you all to be safe and to be back with us next week. So watch out for those knife fights. Make sure you're going to be okay. And folks, I want to see you next week. I'll talk to you again very soon. This is Michael Voss speaking at No Soundbites Allowed, and I hope that you all are very well.